Hello YouTube and hello Ninth Age community. This is Charles with Evershed Gaming, and I'm bringing you another Ninth Age battle report. This is round 5 of Battlecry GT, and as the picture shows, this is a Beast Herds vs Empire Sonnstahl battle report. One of my favorite factions to fight. I feel like I've come to just regard Beast Herds as my eternal enemy. Um, and so I look forward to whenever I can engage them in open battle and crush them or get crushed by them. So this is my list. I'm just gonna show it here. It's I've covered it really well before, so please go watch my first battle report. I cover my list so well in that, and you'll get all the details of why everything's in the list. So round 5, I got to play Greg Cavassini, which I've actually run into before. We played in the doubles at Corner Hammer GT in 2018. So it's been a while since I've seen him on the field, and I haven't played him individually. So I was really looking forward to this. He brought his Beast Herds, so he's got a Minotaur Warlord. That's his general. It's got paired weapons, Agathar's Affliction, Twin Hungers, and the Eye of Dominance. He's got a Beast Chieftain BSB with a Beast with light armor and a Greater Totem Bearer and Destiny's Call. He's got a Soothsayer, Wizard Master with Shamanism and paired weapons. Then he has 28 Wild Horns with full command, 2 things of 20 Wild Horns with Ambush, Musician, and throwing weapons, 5 Minotaurs with paired weapons, Champion Musician, and the Blackwing Totem. So they might have a standard bearer too, or actually the champion takes the totem. That's right, not even the standard. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And then he's got 5 Minotaurs again with paired weapons, champion musician, 2 things of 5 gargoyles, and 2 Gortax. So pretty close combat heavy, an incredibly close combat heavy list. Couple pieces of chaff, 2 little Minotaur units that the Minotaur Warlord can bump into, and then a decent amount of scoring with all the Wild Horns. So round 5, Sunday round 5. They keep it. I love when it's nice and simple. The last game, just frontline clash and breakthrough, perfect. So let's look at my spells. I actually took the same spells from my last game. Loved Unity Divergence in round 4. So I have Fireball, Touch of the Heart, Unity Divergence, Perception of Strength from the Arcane Engine, and then Altered Sight and Ice and Fire. So nice thing of spells. Playing on the same board I played in round 2, which is always kind of fun when you can revisit a board at a tournament. It always actually feels sort of really beneficial too. You already played on it. You kind of had tested the terrain out a bit, so you can really get back on a board. And I'll be honest, I felt really confident playing on this board too. So. And then the picture that the side of the board I'm taking the picture from is the board that I got to choose. So I got a hill, I got a water feature, my opponent gets a rune and the building, and then we kind of share the field and the fences. So I think I showed this picture in my first battle report, this is the glamour shot of my army. I was feeling pretty proud of them at this point, actually. I feel like I made it through some games, couple losses, couple good wins, so it's kind of just looking to have a good time in round 5. So, and I believe I chose table sides, and my opponent got to deploy first, and he just put everything down. So, especially since he's got those 2 ambusher units, he really doesn't have a big deployment, and as you can see, it's a pretty tight deployment, which probably works really well for this army. So, starting from the left to the right, he's got his 28 Wild Horns, and they are modeled as they are the old Best of War models, so most people use those as their long horns, but they are Wild Horns with a big rock unit filler. He's got his 2 gargoyles behind his line, and then he's got his Gortax flanking his 2 Minotaurs, and you can see his Minotaur Warlord pretty much right in the center of this picture. This big axes. I love those old Minotaurs. I was actually commenting when I was looking at those old Minotaurs. I was like, man, some of those old GW models were just really grisly looking. Like, they just looked kind of brutal. Like, I feel like you look at those Gortax, they look so clean, you know what I mean? Like, they look so neat, but like those old Minotaurs, they're kind of frumpy and like mean and like grumpy and just gross and brutal looking. And I say that in the most positive way possible, in that I'm just like, they really look just so monstrous compared to some of the way models kind of got clean later on. But that's just a quick model observation, hot take from Airshade Gaming. So let's look at my deployment. So I've got my steam tank. We'll start going from my right to the left of this picture. So I've got my steam tank and my Knights of Sun Griffin. I'm trying to deploy in a way where his ambushers won't really have much to go after. I've got my Knights of Sun Griffin, kind of backing against the edge, trying to protect the light infantry. I've got the light infantry just a little bit wheeled forward, and that's going to hurt me later on. And then my Wizard Master in between my big block of knights. I've got one of my units of riders just next to my knights so they can go out on chaff. And then I've got another one of my... Actually, I think I might have started dropping first, and I dropped one unit of riders all the way, on the far board edge, and then my opponent just dropped everything else. So I actually might have not even chosen my board edge. Yeah, I might have been gifted the hill. So not a big deal. So I've got my my knights on the hill so they can reroll their charges, and then I've just got my small unit of 3 Knights of Sun Griffin. They're really just kind of looking down my flank. If my opponent wants to drop ambushers there, they're gonna get charged. So this is my opponent's spell from Shamanist. It's got Awaken the Beast, Swarm of Insects, Totanic Summon, and Break the Spirit. All the good ones. Beast Herds are definitely sort of in a comfortable position with Shamanism because they don't even need to take Savage Fury because, one, they have a lot of things with battle focus, and they have hatred too, so they don't even really need that combination. So they literally get to take the best spells from Shamanism. I mean, Chilling Howl is also really good, but not necessary if, against my list I don't have that much shooting. This is where I Vanguard. I just moved the 1 riders over because, again, there's not really anything to chaff on where they were, and I just don't even move the other unit of riders. Just didn't really see a point. They're nice behind the hill. So, Beast Herd's turn 1. He dropped everything for turn 1, and he takes it. So, he doesn't move up all that aggressively. I think he sort of just swings his line a little bit, since I sort of cornered against him on the one side, and but I have the 1 unit Knight Sun Griffin over there. 1 Gortak heads kind of slightly in that direction, but yeah, he doesn't really move all that much. He knows my knights have a pretty long threat range. I really described that well to him. I was like, yeah, they can be advanced 9. I got a hill. I got 3d6. Advanced 9. Reroll if I fail it. It's pretty good. So he doesn't really move all too much. He gets Flux card 2, and he saves 3 Veil tokens he's turn 1, so he's playing conservatively, round 1, smart. He gets a Totemic Summon off. I try to stop it because it's just a frustrating spell to deal with, and as I mentioned before, I sort of left this nice little gap here for him to drop 1 right behind my crossbows, so definitely a poor play on my part with my deployment. And the Breath Weapon goes and it kills 5 crossbows. And that's pretty much it for Beast Herd's turn 1. So Empire of the Sonnstahl, turn 1. I move one of my riders over to sort of try and deal with that Totanic Summon, see if I can get lucky and put some shots on. I just march my crossbows. I give them on the double and steady men, and I just say let's just move forward. It's breakthrough, and I'm like, let's get the crossbows going, baby. So yeah, I just kind of just really abandoned my side. Move up my wizard. He's still pretty far. I think he's out of charge range of a Gortak. He looks pretty close in this, but I want to say he was like just over 19. But it was a little tricky because I had to make sure I was kind of far from I had to make sure I was close enough to cast magic and stuff, but also far enough away from his Totemic Summon that it couldn't just overrun in my card or anything like that. So. Yep, that's Emperor Sonnstahl turn 1 movement. I got Flux card 4. I throw 1 fireball at the gargoyles, and I killed 4, so that was awesome. They don't panic though. And then I put a Unity Divergence on his big unit. I do 1 wound to the shaman, and then I peel like a rank and a half off, so I thought that was pretty good. And the riders shoot the beast, but they can only do 2 wounds, sadly. So, fortunately, we just don't kill these guys. I feel like this thing needs to be Resilience 4. I don't know. That's just me. That's just me, baby. Resilience 4 Totanic Summons. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. So, Beast Turd's turn 2. Again, he doesn't really, no charges, and he doesn't really, actually, this is the end of turn 1. Beast Turd's turn 2. The Ambushers both come on their 3-ups. One's kind of right behind the Knights, kind of looking at the Wizard Master, looking at the back of the Knights, and the other one's looking at the Light Infantry with crossbows. And the Totanic Summon goes into the Riders. And this is Beastard's turn 2 movement. So he brings up one of his Gore-Tax, really far, looking at my flank, looking at my Knights, looking at those Riders. And then he moves, his Minotaurs are both in the woods. He's got one Minotaur looking at my Knights, looking at the Riders, sort of looking at my Wizard probably. And then he's got his Warlord is looking kind of more towards the middle. And then he's got the one Gortok up top. And then he's got his, unit of Wildhorns up there too. And then he chaffed me with his one remaining Gargoyle. Just had enough movement to kind of block off a charge going into the Minotaur Warlord's unit. He gets Fluck card 7, and he saves 2 Veil tokens this time. He gets the Blackwing Totem off on his Minotaurs with his General in it. He gets Break the Spirit off on my Knights of Sun Griffin. I'd let that one go off for sure. They're pretty far from any action, but I think he really just didn't want me to march, which was smart. And then in the combat phase, I lose 1 rider, I think. And then I don't do any wounds to the Totanic Summon. And I flee from combat. I think I had a reroll, but I didn't have my general. So I flee from combat. The Totanic Summon pursues, doesn't get me. And I kind of end up right over there. And I lose a little bit of light infantry to shooting, but it's not all that bad at all. So, Empire Sonnstahl turn 3. I like to say this is what decided the game for us. My opponent, unfortunately, when he chaffed me with his Harpy, he didn't chaff me from going into his Wildhorns. Or he didn't chaff me entirely. So, if I wanted to charge, I would still be able to wheel past his Gargoyle. And I would basically make contact with my Knight Commander and one Knight clipping a corner. So I wouldn't even have that many Knights going into combat, but I would only need to kill, I think, 4 models in order to break his Steadfast. And I thought that really would not have been very hard. And he would have had to kill 3 Knights for me to lose Steadfast, and he would not have a lot of attacks. And it wasn't a very long charge either. We're talking, I think, maybe a 7 on the dice, a 7 on Swift Stride or something like that. Maybe an 8. So we're looking at a very close charge, and my opponent's thinking like, he just can't take that. If he loses that, he loses his BSB and his Wizard, so he decides to flee from them, which I think was the right decision. And then I redirect and I go into his Gortok. Because my idea was, and I thought this would have been so spicy, is if he held the charge of the Wildhorns, I would have put my Wizard Master into his Gortok, and I would have been able to overrun, and, honestly, like, such a high percentage likely I would have been able to overrun into the Gortok, because I really would have beat the Wildhorns. I only needed to kill 3 models. Actually, yeah, looking at it, because he's got 4 ranks right now. I just got to kill 3 models, actually. That's what the Sonnstahl guy is going to do right away. So I basically kill 3 models, and yeah, it's pretty good, honestly. So yeah, I was like, that's going to be pretty spicy. The Wizard Master would have gone to the Gortok, would have beat the Wildhorns, and then I would have gone to the Gortok, just finished the Gortok in 1 round of combat too, and then basically reformed, been in his flank possibly even, and then my opponent's in a really bad spot. So he rightfully fled with his Wildhorns, and I redirected into his Gortok, and I'm able to make it. And my riders did continue fleeing. I only lost 1 to Dangerous Train, though. That was kind of interesting. So, yep, this is the end of the movement. I put my Steam Tank into one of the unit of Wild Horns, and then honestly, it was really great how his Totanic Summon actually just chaffed up his other unit of Wild Horns, so I didn't even have to worry all that much with my Wizard Master. I was able to move pretty comfortably with him, and my rider and my knights sort of turned to start kind of wheeling into the battle. My small unit knights of Sun Griffin just kind of come up on my flank. My riders come up on the flank to shoot the Minotaurs in the forest. And yeah, I feel like I was looking at a really great spot here because I'm thinking I'm just gonna easily chew through this Gortok that the knights are in for combat with. I'm gonna have to take on the Minotaur Warlord next turn, but I think at the very least I'm gonna be steadfast against that unit. So I was really excited about this. So I got Flux card 8-2. We almost mirrored each other's magic phase the entire game. It was kind of funny. So I go Flux card 8 and I save 2 tokens. I get a Fireball off on his other unit of Gargoyles. I only kill one, but with the Blaze, I'm able to just kill the other Gargoyle. So it was very useful just to get rid of that one Gargoyle, less chaff. I get a touch of the Reaper because I had to go over the fence to get these guys, and I took one DT, and I was like, I want to keep the Steam Tank at full health because just because I think I'm going to need it against a Gortok later, and that's not a great matchup. And then going into combat, the Steam Tank, I think it only kills like 3 or 4 guys, but they basically have to take a Discipline 6 test, and they can't make it, so they flee off the board. So well done, Steam Tank. And my Knights easily have no problem just putting all the wounds on the Gortok. I think my Knight Commander did 4, and then the Knights follow up with the extra 2. So we kill that one Gortok, which is great. And then this is the end of the turn. And starting with Beast Herd's turn 3, the Minotaurs come in with the Minotaur Warlord, and my Wizard Master is nice, and he put his Totanic Summon towards him, but he just couldn't quite get him, so I was feeling pretty good about that. He does rally with his BSB and his Wild Horns, so that was very helpful for my opponent, and he's got a Magic Phase still. And this is the rest of his movement. So he moves one of the Gargoyles up to chaff my Knights of Sun Griffin. He doesn't really want to, he wants to start, turning his army towards basically all of my army. So I thought that was very smart of my opponent to chaff me there. And then the one of the Wild Horns just kind of comes up on the hill just to start seeing some stuff. And yeah, that's he's just trying to come at me, but I was really able to split up my forces pretty well in this battle. He gets Flux card 1. He gets Awaken the Beast off for Resilience on his Minotaurs. I didn't really love that, but he had a good roll on because he got 6 dice. He got a good roll on 3 dice, and I really didn't want him to get any totems off because like the +1 attack, +2 AP would just chew through my Knights. Otherwise, the Strength 5, I get 3 up against all the Minotaur attacks, so I was okay with that for Resilience. But then he was unfortunately able to break the Spirit off on me, and I had 4 dice, I just couldn't stop it. So it's going to be a little bit harder to win this combat, but yeah, I just couldn't stop it, unfortunately. So we go into a challenge versus my Knight Commander versus Minotaur Warlord. I do 4 hits, but he makes 3 4-ups, so unfortunately he only takes 1 wound, and then he goes back and he does 2 wounds to me, and he gets 1 lethal strike, so he's actually able to put a wound back on himself. So fortunately I take 2 and I don't really get much back. But then the rest of the combat just goes really well. I only lose 3 Knights. I think I do 7 wounds to his Minotaurs. Yeah, I really put work on him. I don't know, like my characters were hitting and wounding on their strength 4. The Knights were hitting and wounding on their strength 4. And yeah, we just do a bunch of damage to them. And he just can't stick around even with, I think he went down to like a break test on a 5 or a 6. I think it was a 5, and he couldn't make it, even with his BSB. So he flees, and I decide not to pursue because it's my turn, and I really want to just get rid of his Magic Phase. So my Knights pivot on their center so they can look at the Wild Horns, and we're about to go into Empire Sonnstahl turn 3, but just a big combat right here. Oh my god, I can't even, it's such an understatement to say big combat, because it's just like, this game really just got decided by my movement phase last round, and then this combat in my opponent's turn. Turn 2 was, everything happened, everything changed here, so, yeah. I put on the double because my BSB is just in range still, and I put brace for impact on my knights to get all those extra attacks. I charge my knights into his wild horns. I'm just so close to him he can't really flee, and yeah, everything just I move my light infantry forward, move my steam tank into his totanic summon. I move my Knights of Sun Griffin up so that I can look at the rest of his army. I've got my Wizard Master behind them in case he makes a long charge. Just feeling really good about this position. And I put my Knights of Sun Griffin into his gargoyles as well, and my other unit of riders rallies too. Everything's just working so cohesively right now. I get flex card 1, that's what I'm saying. We mirrored magic phases. Save 2 Veil tokens. And I put a Touch of the Heart off on my Knight Commander, take a wound off. I think this is... let's go back. I also got Altered Sight off on my Knights to alleviate the Break the Spirit. So that was nice. I shoot over here, and I do, I think, either 1 or 2 wounds to the Minotaurs, but I just do a little bit of damage. Actually, I might do more because there was 5. I think this is the first time shooting at them. Or this is a couple rounds of shooting. Basically, I've killed 1 Minotaur, and 1 Minotaur either has a wound or 2 wounds on him. I can't really remember how my opponent was counting dice. I want to say he counted up, so probably just 1 wound. And the steam tank kills the totemic summon. And it actually panics these wild horns. And then in combat, we just go to town. We kill all but 1 wild horn. I think I get into a challenge with my champion versus his B-score guy. Or actually, I think it was champion versus champion, and I killed his champion. Yeah, it was brutal. And then we pursue, and we catch them just because I just wanted all those points. I didn't want him to be able to try and rally on a 5 or something like that, or a 4. And yeah. And I guess I also wasn't too worried because I'm like, I know he's got to rally his next turn. And at this point, I'm thinking, even if he comes back in, I think I just had too many knights for him to chew through. And I'll just probably win combat, My Knights of Sun Griffin beat the Gargoyles. These guys rally on his turn. So this is Beast Herde's turn 3. This Gortok tries to charge, but unfortunately he fails. And this is what the rest of the moon phase is. So the unit of Minotaurs with the Warlord does rally. They kind of look at both my Knights and my Knights of the Sun Griffin. And then his other small unit of Minotaurs, like the 4, they turn to look at the riders that are shooting them. And also they turn to kind of look at my deployment zone for scoring, and also, they're kind of looking at the Knights of Sun Griffin that are, threatening the wild horns on the hill there. And it's not 2 units of 10, it's just he didn't have his, his miniatures were just on a wood base, and they were just falling off a little bit, so the ones on the hill, that's where their back is, basically, so. No magic or anything really for his turn 3, so we go into Emperor Sonnstahl turn... Or actually, sorry, that was his turn 3, so this is my turn. Actually, that was turn 4. This is Emperor Sonnstahl turn 4 right here. I forgot, I went second, so... I charged my Knights of Sun Griffin these guys, got to get rid of the scoring so I can win the objective. And, yep, this is basically just how I turn. It was a really, really just, again, I feel like I was just rolling so hot this game because my riders passed their March block test on a 6, so they could chaff his Minotaur Warlord, so I was able to just easily turn my Knights around, and I didn't even have to really, worry about now getting charged, so that was great. I moved my steam tank forward, just on the 43 just to shoot the cannon at the Gortok. And the best part too is my light. You can see we basically traded table sides actually, because my light infantry are now in his deployment zone in that rune. So that was just incredible. I guess it's just incredible just to move light infantry all the way across the board. I get another touch of the heart, pull that last wound off my Knight Commander, so my Knight Commander's feeling fresh, feeling ready to go. I get flex card 5, which gives me quite a bit of dice, save 2 Veil tokens. I throw a fireball at the Gortok, put a wound on him. And then in the combat right here, I think I do 6 wounds, and he passes his break test. So we're going into Beast Herd's turn 5. He puts his. I probably didn't mention it, but I chaffed his Minotaurs with my Riders last round. So he goes into them, so he can kind of move forward. And then he puts his Gortok into my Steam Tank, and we're still fighting those Wild Horns there. And he moves his Minotaur Warlord. I thought this was interesting. I thought it was smart and a little scary at the same time. Scary in that like his Minotaur Warlord is just out on the open now, but he really just moves him out, I think, so that he's got more charging options. I mean, he's pretty tough at Resilience 6, and I do have, effective magic against him. I mean, Fireball and Ice and Fire are kind of scary for that guy, because any 6s are just, well, the Fireball, the 6s are just going to go through, and then Ice and Fire, I can throw it on the Fire version, which is reroll your special saves. So I thought it was really, I thought it was pretty gutsy, but I mean, at this point, my opponent doesn't have that many options, so... And he actually does move his Minotaurs in a way that the unit of 3 that it's pretty hard. I think I can still charge, but I can't get a lot of stuff into combat. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty smart movement phase for my opponent for where he's at. Going into combat, these Minotaurs have no problem wiping out the Riders. They just turn to face my Knights of Sungriffin. And then going into the Gortok combat, oh, man, I think this is where my opponent's dice really they weren't particularly bad until this point. I feel like because the Gortok goes in the Steam Tank, it does only 1 wound. It gets like 2 impact hits. It does a wound. I make an armor save, and then it hits like 8 times. Doesn't get a lethal strike. And I think it only does 2 wounds. I think he just rolls so poorly. I felt this is where I was like, oh man, my opponent's having just a bad dice game too. Not only is this like game going really well for me, but my opponent's dice aren't giving him any favors. And I go back with my breath weapon and my grinds, and I put 4 more wounds back on the Gortak. It has to take a break test, and it flees from combat on a stubborn 9. It just leaves combat. So yeah, I think that was just kind of showing that, man, my opponent was just having bad dice. Yeah. I'm not really sure what this picture is showing, because I feel like we still have one more combat to fight, but I'm not sure what happened there. But that was probably, I guess, maybe the end of turn 5, going into Emperor Sonnstahl magic phase for turn 5. Throw a Touch of the Heart. Yeah, I guess I just missed my magic phase, because you can see... I put my Steam Tank into his Warlord, because I'm thinking at this point, like I probably won't kill him, but I'd love to just tie him up the rest of the game with the Steam Tank. So I throw a Touch of the Heart into my magic phase at his Gortok, and he actually lets it go. It kills him, but he's, I actually didn't even think about it. Lets his Minotaurs move forward now. I thought that was pretty smart of him, because my Knights of Sungriffin did finish off those Wild Horns. Because this is sort of jumping ahead a little bit, but yeah, I go into combat. I think I do a wound or 2, and then he goes back and he does 1 lethal strike to me, and I think I win by 1, and he also just flees from combat too, or something like that. So his Minotaur Warlord is fleeing. I get to turn my Steam Tank. Now I can threaten his Minotaurs on my turn 6. It is just... Steam Tank was just killing it this game, just rocking out. So, yeah, this is actually the start of Beast Herd's turn 6. He charges the Minotaurs into my Knights of Sungriffin, trying to keep, he's got a vision to maybe get the scoring going. He's got the 1 unit alive that's in my deployment zone, so he's just got to beat my Knights of Sungriffin. His Minotaur Warlord does rally, and then on Empire Sonnstahl turn 6, basically what happened in the combat with the 3 Minotaurs versus the 3 Knights of Sungriffin is we both did a lot of damage to each other. He won by 1, and I made my Discipline 7 check, and it allowed my Steam Tank to come into the flank. I moved my Knights of Sungriffin up. I've got my crossbows in his deployment zone. My Knights going to finish off those 3 Minotaurs. This game is just wrapping up at this point. We kill the Minotaur. We kill the other 3 Minotaurs. And that's the end of the game. So, looking at the points and the final results, so Empire Sonnstahl got 4,025 points. That's including everything basically but the Minotaur Warlord and getting the BSB's, points too. To the 150 from one unit of riders. That's all I lost, unfortunately. So it's a 17-3, and then I won the objective because I had my light infantry in his deployment zone. So it ends up being a 20-0 victory. So day two, I was able to get two 20-0s. And let me tell you, two 20-0s can do a lot for your score. So let me talk about how the tournament wrapped up. But just want to say thanks to Greg for a great game. So with getting a lot of points on day two, I wasn't in a terrible spot. Day one, I would say. I think I ended with 29 points, but then I picked up 40 more points at the end of the day, so I ended up actually finishing in fourth place, right behind Mark Shalone, and then Justin Berge, my round three opponent, also finished above me at 100, and then Joe Finlayson was able to win that tournament with his Vermin Swarms, and yeah, just I was just blown away. I mean, I just had such great games day two, and I didn't have terrible games. I mean, the worst game I played was game three, and I just felt like I played that whole game wrong. But yeah, big swing for me. So I actually posted some the forum of like the 6 games I played, and I did all my MVPs and my LVPs. So all the way back to that first game I played with Phil Carl. Definitely my MVP that game was the Knightly Order Death Star. I mean, they beat on the Avatar. They held their own against like like 3 units in combat. And then my LVP were the Knights of Sun Griffin, because they couldn't kill that Tree Father. And then in the first game, round one, Battle Cry, my MVP was the Steam Tank for sure. I mean, it bounced off the Gargantula. It beat down that giant. It shot a giant, did a bunch of wounds, and then it helped me win that combat the last round. And then my LVP were just the light infantry with crossbows when they shot turn one. I mean, everything went pretty well that game too, but definitely the LVP was the crossbows just whiffing their first round shot. Against then Orcs and Goblins round two, when I got the 9-11 loss, my MVP was the Wizardmaster in Cosmology, who was actually he was fantastic all weekend. I haven't played with Cosmology in a while, but man, I just found it to be very wonderful lore. It's just got so much utility, I mean, which is the whole idea of the lore. But I really felt like I had answers to a lot of things. Sometimes I wanted there to be a little bit more damage, but there already is so much, and it shouldn't be just a damaged lore like pyromancy. But I was really impressed with it, and he definitely held his own that game and got me so many points. And then my LVP were the 4 Knights of Sun Griffin. And I feel like it's hard to put it on them, but they were the losers that game because they needed to kill that. I could also sort of say the Steam Tank actually. That's the Steam Tank shares that LVP, I would say, because both of them had a chance to kill that Orc Warlord guy, and neither of them could do it. He just rolled too many saves. And then against the loss against the ID. I wish I could put myself as the LVP because, man, I feel like I just played that whole game wrong. I really just needed to rush at the ID, really threaten his magic turn one. But I played safe, and I think it really cost me the game, unfortunately. Just happy that I kept 3 points, I guess. And then my MVP was the Knights of Sun Griffin that beat the 4 knights that beat the 3 Kadim so that I could tie the objective. That was pretty big. Against the Demon Legions in Game 4, man, there were so many MVPs. The Steam Tank just crushed it. I mean, he killed 3 units on his own. The Steam Tank. I mean, it beat down the Succubi in 3 runs of combat. That was crazy. It beat the Brazen Beasts. It finished out the Veil Serpents. Oh, man. The Steam Tank just rocked it that game. My Cosmo Master surviving the combats and blowing up the blowing up the Cortesian, blowing up the Hope Harvester, and those three Knights of Sun Griffin also deserve a mention for holding their own against a Cortesian for, I think, 3 rounds of combat, maybe 4 rounds of combat. Yeah, wow, no, just three. No, maybe 4. I had to go back and look. And then the light infantry with crossbows were sort of the LVP in that game because they, I guess I really needed them on turn 2 to get rid of those Claude Fiends, so my Wizard Master wasn't even threatened, and they weren't able to do that, but, that's okay. And then the last game against the Beastards, definitely the Knightly Orders, Death Star, they just they just really dictated that whole game. On turn 2, when they were able to just be like, all right, I'm gonna charge out against your BSB's unit, and I'm probably gonna win combat, and I will probably run you down, and then I will go into the score talk, and I will also beat it and be in your flank the rest of the game. Yeah, that whole game just got decided turn 2 with them, basically. And then even when they held their own against 5 Minotaurs and a Minotaur Warlord, and they beat them in combat. Like, it was just awesome. It was just awesome. And then my LVP that game was just the 4 Knights of Sun Griffin, only because they didn't do anything. It's sad to say, like, my LVP is a unit that all it did was kind of move around, But in that game, the last 2 games went like my last 2 games on Battlecry went just exceedingly well. Just things were so perfect. I just kind of like when I was writing this up, it was kind of I didn't even realize Death Star was a term that's like highlighted on the 9th Age thing, and I just thought that was kind of funny. I just wanted to lift that up. And then for those interested in this Empire Sonnstahl list and how it plays, I definitely really love this list. It's so fast. The knights are awesome. If you can't get the knight unit, it's almost like I can just get a 10-10 sometimes because it's so many points are just tied up in that bad boy that, yeah, it's really effective in that way. But I was thinking about how could I make it better, and I think the biggest thing I realized over the weekend is that the MR just really wasn't worth it. It sounded great. It sounded like, oh, this will help mitigate an alchemy matchup, and it's like, no, I have too many things with good armor saves that even in an alchemy matchup, it's like he's just got so many targets. You can just roll well on your casting values. I just don't think the alchemy. I don't think the magic resistance really helps. I think the alchemy is just a bad matchup, and I just got to deal with it. It's sort of nice that I feel like alchemy is not being taken as much. I think divination seems really popular in the meta for a lot of armies, and then armies without divination, they're either running maybe like evocation, or they're running occultism, or they're different things. But divination across the board has been pretty popular, I think, with the rise of demons right now. And divination is not a very effective against my army. So I'm actually, slightly not too worried about that. If I have to play alchemy, I think I have a better knowledge of what to do. Of just honestly just go after the caster. If you can just get rid of him, you get rid of the threat from range. So, and I'm pretty fast. So, but the biggest drop the MR. And I didn't really. I actually didn't have a lance on my marshal, and that was sort of like the one only goof I left in my list. Is I had a lucky charm on my prelate, which is nice, but I would have rather had a lance on my marshal, just some more strength 6. So, but I like the death warrant better on him because he's just got more attacks. I really make sure he hit every time, and then I decided I wanted to beef up my prelate. So I gave him the Alchemist Alloy and the Hero's Heart. I only give him the Alchemist Alloy because I'm really tight on character points. But I thought the and paired weapons. So now he's got some Strength 5 AP3 attacks I can use too, just to make my knight unit even more grindy and have more combat potential. So since the Death Warrant went on the BSB, the banner speed had to go on the Knights in Core. And then I decided just to drop the banner. I love the Marksman Pendant, but I think it's more useful when you have more shooting in a list. Because honestly, in this list, if something is going to charge the light infantry and they're going to get in there, they're probably going to beat them anyway. The stand and shoot's probably not going to make a big difference. So I decided I just want to drop it because I'm just maintaining the smallest amount of core. And I was playing around with maybe dropping one of the Knights of Sun Griffin for maybe like a unit of Rangers or something like that. But I think the unit of 4 is nice. And I think the unit of 3 is nice. So the biggest change is just a couple changes to the characters. So I want to thank everybody for watching this battle report and kind of joining me on the reflection of the end of the Battlecry tournament. I'll be looking forward to making some more content. I think I'm gonna let the night list rest for a bit. I feel pretty confident about it. I think I want to take it to another tournament for sure. Just to make sure this wasn't a one-off with it. Really give it another good test, good stress test to see if it is a good list right now in the meta. So I'll probably play it casually, but I've been looking at some other lists, and I want to try out a couple of different things with Empire and Sonnstahl. So look forward to that. Look forward to some more battle reports. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you soon with some more content.